We are live now.
It's working?
Yep.
All right.
So we'll give it a couple minutes.
I'll post the links now.
Cool.
Oh, come on, computer.
I can't tell like if it. So does it say viewers like at the bottom for you?
No, it doesn't say anything. Does it say that on yours?
It does, but I don't know how accurate that is. If it's from that YouTube feed or elsewhere, but oh well.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't know if people start saying.
It just went up. Yeah.
Are there people like commenting, or you see that anywhere?
No, it doesn't give me that option. Yeah, we got two.
To make sure that we're not just talking to ourselves.
No. So there's two people in so far.
2 people.
If you're watching this, hit us up on Twitter.
Twitter is the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
Facebook is really so slow with this running. Give it a few minutes for people to get in.
Yeah.
So you're in Australia, right? Or New Zealand?
No, Australia.
You're in Australia. How are things going down there?
So far so good, man. It's summertime here.
So is there actually like a not summertime there?
Yeah, actually, no. It's the opposite. So like when it's summertime over there, it's winter here. Yeah.
So, winter. How cold is it?
It could get to what in Celsius. It's about between 5 and 10, I think, maybe.
Okay, so it's still summer, but
by Canadian standards, yeah. Let's see. Hold on. I just retweeted what you put up.
Nice.
So we got about 4 viewers so far. If whoever's watching this, okay, we got 5 viewers now. Whoever's watching this, hit us up on Facebook or Twitter.
Twitter, Facebook's not working right now.
Yeah,
it's running because internet's so bad. But yeah, Twitter, and I'll just like keep my feed open.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, we got about 7 viewers now. We're still gonna wait a couple more minutes, so that way we don't have to repeat ourselves. But yeah, if you're watching this, once again, thank you for joining us. Hit us up on Twitter, Facebook. Also, if you have questions as well, hit us up and we'll do our best to try and answer them. Obviously, me and Vect are huge. I think first and foremost, no matter what, like we all were fans of this first and foremost before we even decided to like even scratch. So.
Yeah, for sure. I was the hugest nerd of all things battle and turntablist related. I still am. But yeah, I always like to like. I still like fanboy out about like beef and things and routines and stuff like that. Even still, sometimes I have to like watch what I say. I can't talk the same way as I did nowadays.
Yeah, no, totally agree with you on that. Let's see. So we're up to 13 viewers so far. So yeah, we share.
Let's break 1,000.
good. Let's go for 1,000. Oh, we just lost one. Whoever left, I pity you. Hit us up on Twitter and Facebook. We're just going to have these little micro conversations, I guess, as people pile on, just to kind of give people an understanding. Oh, we're up to 16 now. An understanding and background as far as where we stand, where our background is, obviously both being former champions, but also our viewpoint on where everything should go and the current state, and bridging that gap that's obviously there apparently within the community. So
trying to maybe add a little insight into the beef that's going on. I feel like this even though, like, you know, it's happening right now with Rob Swift and Fly, namely, but it's kind of an issue that's been kind of bubbling for a while. You know, like there's always been this kind of there's a lot of things that this beef represents in the scene and in like the, you know, battling and the culture and everything.
Totally. Yeah, it's kind of like it's reached its boiling point. It's come out in this way, which sucks because I wish it didn't come out in this particular form. You know, we have legend versus legends. You know.
Yeah, it's a little bit of excess negativity, I think, but you know, but no, it's out there.
So I think I'll start off, I guess. Oh, we're up to 18. Did I say 18 already? Yeah, 18 viewers. Hold on, let me just check my Facebook real quick. Okay. Yeah, so basically in a nutshell, I guess, if you are a purist when it comes to turntablism, one would expect you to kind of acknowledge and respect hip hop, since its origins are rooted in the hip hop, you know, elements, specifically, obviously with DJing. So, at what point, I guess the question I'll ask is, say you go through the history. Both you and I have gone through like the history of everything. We do our homework, we study up, we master all of that. But then what is the next level? What's the next step after that? You know, if someone who's just starting out, you know, they go through the executioner's tapes, they go through the scratch pickles, they go through all of that, they learn it, they master it. And let's say they master it privately, you know, because one of the things that doesn't really, that it's kind of, it doesn't get posted publicly on Facebook or on Twitter, but a lot of the stuff that certain people do, we kind of already do in our bedrooms, but strictly for drilling purposes, you know, like for example, let's take your strobe or chase pattern, you know, that is something that everyone, if you're a skilled turntablist, you do, but when you put that into a battle and expect to be critiqued, you know, it kind of falls into that category of, you know, it's not a matter of like, oh, it's in the past. It's a matter of when we really dissect it, it's really easy to do once you get the muscle memory down, because it's really, to break it down without actually having turntables here, it's like you have one turntable where you're doing a lot of work, you know, whereas the other turntable is kind of static, you know. So when we're talking about beat juggling and all that, the strobe kind of comes into play. Not necessarily just strobing, but like the chase patterns, basically. So I think it comes down to just difficulty, you know, how difficult certain patterns are, and how can you still make it funky and musical. But the problem is, how do you do both? But also with the funk, how do you be funky without reusing those patterns from back in the day as well?
Yeah. so okay, let's see. What,
I'm just
there-
I'm just trying to give history
yeah, you
first and
touched on a
foremost
lot of
before
things.
we get into like the actual routines themselves, because I think it's like when you look at Fly and Netik, it's like they both can do all that stuff, you know, in a nutshell, you know. And so in a sense, it could be also misleading for to accuse someone's like they're not backspinning. So it's like, but they
Yeah,
can't spin, you know.
yeah,
So
yeah. There's a certain point where it's like, um, if I was to see like if I was to see like a newer DJ do a routine where yeah, they're not backspinning and they're doing a lot of like easy stuff. um, I might think that they're doing that because they can't do difficult stuff, and because they're doing it as like a shortcut, or something like that, or because that's where their skill level is peaked. But then when you see, like, if I saw DJ Craze doing it, I would
mm,
I would think, I wouldn't be like, oh, Craze is not backspinning because he can. I'm thinking he's not backspinning because he made the artistic choice not to do that because simpler was better for what he was doing.
mhm.
So I'm yeah, like when you look at different DJs, and you like DJs who have like a lot of like battle accomplishments and stuff, and who have been in the game for a while. You got to give them a bit of credit, I find, like, for if they do something that's kind of simple, like they chose to do something simple. It's not because they couldn't or something. um,
Mhm.
I felt like um, in this the Rob Swift breakdown, I felt like like I don't completely disagree with what he's criticizing with the really heavily edited production dependent type of routines in general, like, but this specific video and the specific people he chose to make an example of was maybe not like the best example. Like, Netik is like, he's got some really good beat juggles under his belt, going way back to like 2001, 2002. He can do that stuff, and this new video he didn't, but it's not because he can, it's because he chose not to.
Hmm. Totally. Shortcut just hit me up on Facebook, asking if there's a chat. We haven't figured that out. This is our first time trying this thing. We just kind of winged it within a matter of 20 minutes. But hit us up on Twitter as
Twitter,
well.
really,
What's your handle, Greg?
at Vect, at VEKKED.
And mine is a little complex. DJ underscore I underscore DEE. DJ I-Dee. So yeah, hit us up on. Oh, I love you too, Shortcut. Hi. Anyways, I had to do that.
Oh my god.
So anyways, I want to, yeah. Speaking on the history and the background of the guys that are involved in particular, um,
Mhm.
because I understand Rob's frustration that everything is rooted in hip hop. So let's talk a little bit about hip hop in this particular aspect. So um, the parallel with Rob's frustration that I see is like, so let's talk about the state of hip hop in the music industry. A lot of people don't like trap music. A lot of people don't like Kanye stuff. But then you have some people that like Kendrick Lamar. But still, at the end of the day, Kendrick isn't uh, underground enough, you know. So there's always going to be that bickering, you know, as far as what's real rapping and all that shit.
Yeah.
Whereas with DJing has surpassed, I think, out of all the elements, just turned into a whole nother monster with turntablism and whatnot. So at what point, I guess, what do we credit more? Do we credit more the evolution of everything that it's become, or do we continue to hold on to the foundation and the fundamentals? Because it's like if we hold on to the foundation fundamentals, let's say the whole entire DJ scene wasn't affected by the YouTube generation and everything, and
Mhm.
so they were able to learn all the stuff that you and I learned from DVDs and VHS, you know.
Mhm.
So if everyone was dope and cool, then what do we do afterwards? What's the progression? You know, I'm trying to look at it from like Rob's perspective. You know,
Yeah.
like if the scene wasn't as whack as it kind of is, you know, compared to uh, 10, 15 years ago, you know, because with Rob obviously being a lecturer, professor, I don't want to throw that title out, you know, in particular, but you know, I always love seeing him put up videos of his students online and really pushing them
Yeah.
and you know, and motivating them. But at the same time, like if I was in that class, I want to uh, like if I wanted to branch, like I finished the class, I learned the foundations. What do I do next? What speaks out to me in particular? Because he's almost telling people how to feel about a particular situation when at the end of the day, it's still music. Like when I watched the Fly and Netik video,
Yeah.
I'm a hip hop fan, but I'm a music fan first. And so musically, I was happy. I was excited. Those were the feelings that I got from it. You know,
Yeah.
would I want to see anything bland or watered down, which would be more technically or more appropriate within the Rob Swift definitions of what you should be doing as far as DJing goes? So that's the debate or whatever I see or conflict with
Yeah. I guess like yeah, when I watched the video, because I was talking to other people about it before too, like when because it started blowing up and people were asking what I thought about it, and like I don't know, I thought it was a fine video, like it's entertaining. It's not like it's definitely not something that like would win like DMC teams or something like that, but it's not a battle routine, and I've got to for me I kind of have to separate. I have to like have kind of a two different mentalities about it. You know, like you have to put everything in the context of what it is. Like when I see a DJ make like a Facebook video or something, I'm not judging that like a battle routine. Or if I see somebody do something in a DJ set or in a club, I'm not judging it like to DMC standards or something. And you know, and like when I saw their video, um, I don't exactly know the I think like they're doing like some club nights together and stuff, and it's sort of like a promo for the for them DJing together and things, and it's not really, it was meant to be like sort of light and stuff, and you know I can't really like, it's pretty, I don't know if it's completely like fair to just like go in and like body bag people who are for like doing something like that. I don't know, like I kind of have to like I feel like if I judged everything critically, like every routine, every set that I saw posted, if I like looked at it with like a harsh critical breakdown eye, like I do with battle routines, I just like wouldn't be able to enjoy any DJing, you know, like, but you got to kind of put it into its own perspective and context of like what's being made and stuff.
it.
Um, and Yeah, and what else are you saying about talking about like yeah, learning like the like hip hop and like the evolution and stuff, and like um yeah, for me like the importance of like learning the history of the art and like the foundations of hip hop and everything, with regard to turntablism, and that is it's not about uh learning all that so that you can do that stuff exactly how it is and just repeat everything like how it was and just keep doing that same stuff. It's like learning to it's kind of learning like the it's like all of that stuff is sort of like the rudiments of our art form, and you have to learn the basics. It's like the equivalent to like learning scales on other instruments, you know, and you have to learn that stuff because if you don't, it's really hard to do something new and do something like forward thinking and push it forwards. But you know, I don't know, but it's a fine line because there's some people who I don't think they believe that, and they like they would rather things sound, you know, they would rather people just use 90s hip hop and not even try to apply those same ideas to new music, you know.
Mhm.
But and yeah.
So I got two little comments here from Shortcut and Image from the Wood. Shortcut wrote basically the selection or technique. You know, that's also, I guess, the ongoing debate. You know, what do we um, value more? You know, like, so the selection and the musicality of it, or you know, or the technique and all that. You know, proper technique come first. I can understand the proper technique debate because it's like we're um, uh, in a state of preservation, that the fact that it's dying, you know, and that's the truth of the matter. You know, like um, one can argue that, you know, DMC hasn't been the same attendance wise because, you know, if you're an average person going to watch a DJ battle, you know, if you know if only 10% is good and then the other 90% is pretty whack, you more than likely wouldn't go back to that battle, you know. Whereas if
Praise is wanting to chime in too, by the way.
oh what's Crazy saying? What is he saying?
Keep saying. I'm gonna message him.
But yeah, so like that's another thing. So speaking of Craze ruined everything. You know, you ruined like Craze set the bar so high that everyone's trying to play catch up. But
Yeah.
also, in saying that, within this like YouTube generation, like when you see the new slaves routine, it shouldn't be, wow, like this is so overwhelming, blah 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 blah. It's like it should inspire you. Like, yeah, you know what? I might not be able to um, uh, do that, but you know what? I'm going to try to do the best that I can do within my current skill set. And I think that's the problem with this generation, that they'll try a little bit, but then they get so intimidated by any little thing, you know, and yeah, it just totally deters them from practicing. And you know, like yeah, it's almost the equivalent is like if you're a DJ, right? Like when we first started, in particular, we'd get doubles of records. We'd spend $20 on just that pair of doubles. We had no choice but to work with those doubles because, you know, otherwise, you know, we're gonna have to spend another $20 or whatever to get another pair. Whereas with Serato, it's like you run through everything. Everything's just fast, and everyone has ADD in a sense.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's a conflicting thing, you know, like the turntablism is kind of being consumed by this current like social media society, you know, in terms of people not like practicing the way that they should be. Now, anyways, back to the preservation. I understand where Rob is coming from and all that. Now, one thing I want to bring up is the business aspect of putting out these routines for everyone to watch, you know. So obviously, like Facebook, YouTube, if you have something, I mean, you know, in particular, having stuff go viral, you know, I think yours was the most organic one, in a sense that, you know, you've obviously worked a year, worked your ass off for a year putting this set together for your online DMC.
Yeah.
But there's still that, you know, I'm still not sure until it goes live. And then once it goes live, then you see the domino effect happen, and all of the work pays off. Whereas you, in another sense, let's use the Fly and Netik routine and the new slaves, where you have two groups of champions that know it's like, you know what, we're going to create a really good product, whether it be in the form of the routine. And, you know, we might take shortcuts. We might even mime certain things. I'll be honest. I've only seen the video once. I saw what Rob put about, you know, certain things. So I honestly have to watch it one more time. I'm just going off my first.
I don't think there's any miming going on. Like there's a lot of like production and editing and sort of like, you know, stuff like that going on. But I don't think all the actual like performance was live.
Word. And so in saying that, I think the other thing that kind of stuck out to me with what Rob was saying, the certain points that portions from what I remember, I'm strictly going off of memory, that Netik and Fly were doing some really ill cuts. I expected Rob to be like, oh, okay, well, actually, let's dissect that section because the parts that they were doing was really dope. You know, like let's break down what they were doing cut for cut. You know, but that didn't happen. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I thought I would have liked, you know, yeah. I felt like Rob's breakdown of it was a bit too negative and too focused on like, yeah, the parts that he didn't like about it. It wasn't really like, it was a bit like of a rant, you know. Obviously, like I understand where he's coming from because he's like one of the fathers of beat juggling. So when he sees like a set where they're kind of taking shortcuts on and cutting corners on beat juggling specifically, it's kind of, you know, he's obviously that's the part he cares about the most, so that's what he's gonna like be upset about the most. But yeah, like you know, there's really good things about it too. Like, yeah, the scratching, this like Netik and Fly are amazing scratchers, and like you've got to give them like credit where credit is due too. You know, you've got look at the positive with the negative. Like personally, I'm not a fan of edited beat juggles either because for me it's like the art of beat juggling is taking taking a song with a certain rhythm and a certain swing to it, and then within the limitations of the swing and rhythm it has, you bend it into a new swing and rhythm that still flows as if it was like it still flows naturally, you know. It still sounds it doesn't sound like it was like pieced together or something. It sounds like it could have been programmed. Like doing like the halftime breakdown, that's the most classic natural way to change the tempo and swing of a record. But a lot of the edited produced beat juggles, that they're not doing that at all, and that's kind of like it's kind of the equivalent to me of like if you take a beat and you just chop it up and just chase through it and kind of play it at the normal tempo, with adding like a little bit of cuts. It's sort of the equivalent of taking like the sample like cut like a guillotine and just like just taking each syllable and going in Ableton and just chopping it up and being like cut like guillotine, 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 latine, cut, like, and cutting all the syllables up and just playing them in order and never like pulling back on it, you know. And which is, you know, maybe the end result of chopping it all up in Ableton and playing the sample like that would be the same as if you did it manually and went to each, like scratched each syllable of it. But, you know, it's not, to me, it's about like actually doing it and like breaking it down like that. Like that, to me, that's the actual art form of it. So I like, you know, I'm with, like, I agree with Rob's sentiment in only that part of it, but I just feel like it, you know, is a little bit it's a little bit harsh to the end, and he went off track a little bit, going with like dissing, you know, all European DJs and dissing them a little bit as DJs in general, when they've both done a lot to like I paid their dues.
The one thing about the European style versus the U.S. style, to kind of emphasize on what you were saying.
One second. We got a craze comment here. Rob has points, but I feel Fly and Netik's routine wasn't on some battle skillful shit. Is more entertainment than anything. But the pre-recorded thing is not my thing. But more power to them. Anything we can do to get this art form further to people who don't understand it, I'm with it. And so yeah, that I think that's pretty much where I'm coming from too. Like yeah, it's hard to like, it's really hard to just because somebody's like a DMC champion and stuff, you can't really, you have to still like take content they put out with a little bit of a grain of salt, and you can't I'm not watching like an 8-track festival set and being like, oh, why is he not doing his Get Your Freak On juggle, or like this like juggle he did with Robot Rock isn't as good as his Get Your Freak On, you know. But it's like not really for that context, and yeah, and like Craig said, it's about sometimes it's about like making it a little easier for people to understand, to get the art form out to people, instead of, because you know, doing everything like DMC level technicality isn't really the best way to get people to understand it who aren't DJs, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think what it boils down to, the U.S. versus European style, is the magic of juggling back in the day when everyone took records that people knew is gone, you know, in a sense. And so that's what is being taken out, like with what you were saying with the European style, when you have stuff lined up and, you know, it's just kind of, you're just going through, it almost becomes just mechanical in a sense, where you're just piecing everything together, and, you know, you're not really investing yourself into the record that you're working with and kind of linking up with it. Someone said something on Twitter about well, I just want to re-clarify the comments I said about Craze. What I mean by Craze messed up the scene is everyone kind of looked at it and was like, wow, like how the fuck, how am I going to like practice turntablism after he put out a routine like that, you know, with the New Slaves one. The thing with Craze is Craze gets better as time goes on, year after year, and part of that is because of his crazy work ethic that I can attest to, going all the way back to like maybe '07 or '08 or whatever. But that's the thing, like with turntablism in general, if you're just getting into it within the Serato generation, expect to put in time, work, effort, and a lot of nights where you know you just have no other choice but to focus on that. You know, it's not easy. You know, no one said it was. You know, yeah, there's certain cuts that we can teach you within a matter of minutes that took us, you know, a long time to develop. But also there are certain things that, with the muscle memory, that, you know, you have to like put in the time and effort. You know, I can show you how to do an orbit, you know, but in order to get it super fast and quick, you know, that's just going to be on you to spend the next 5 to 6 months to open up those spasms or whatever, the muscles, you know, in your wrist, to kind of pursue and move forward with that. But anyways, but with the New Slaves thing, it's like, don't be intimidated by it. Appreciate it. Understand where he stands skill wise, but at the same time, you know, don't let that deter you from wanting to pursue this even further, you know? So.
Yeah, exactly. Rome wasn't built in a day, and you know, DJ Craze wasn't built in a day either.
No, yeah, totally. To focus a little bit more again on the business aspect of things, Craze brought up the good point of like, this is entertainment, it's put out there. You know, on the other hand, you can see Rob Swift's perspective that he doesn't want to see hip hop portrayed like this, you know. But again, you go back to Craze, you see it, you know, that let's do whatever we're already dying, you know, as a culture, you know, turntablism wise. Let's do whatever it takes to kind of get this out to the masses, you know. So to go back to Shortcut's point, going forward, what do we value more as a scene as far as moving forward constructively? Do we focus on selection and making the best stuff musically, or do we take a step back and view the technical stuff, you know, as just as important, or maybe like we're going to keep having this debate over and over and over until we pick one. And so my view is, you know, and I'll put it out on Front Street too. A lot of the people who commented on Rob's post, I did a quick skim. I've never really seen them, at least in the US. I don't know about Europe, if, I haven't really seen some of them in a DMC battle before, unless, they've put up videos which I haven't particularly seen, so there is a lot of yes men in that particular regard, that, are just kind of going to hopping on the bandwagon, when, the whole point of Rob's challenges that he puts up is also, to kind of get those folks to like focus on the fundamentals and foundations, but they should, all those people in particular too should be appreciative of, the evolution of it too. And I think that's where stuff can get, that's where I thought it got really, really nasty, that as soon as like someone said, like, again, I only saw it once. You said off the top of your head that there was no miming or anything with the routine, so the fact that, or not fact, rather that once Rob Swift said something, then they were like, oh, okay, well, yeah, it must be true, like, and then they start on this whole negative rant of like the scene, but it's like, do you even know who you're talking about? Like, you're talking about Fly and Netik, like some of the dopest DJs ever, and it's like they're talking about someone without even knowing their body of work,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like there's guys. I went on Netik's fan page, and like there's some guy who clearly just read the beef, and he was like posting on Netik's thing, being like, oh, you're just like a fake miming DJ, you're not a real DJ and stuff. To like Netik is like, it's like this dude, like, not only does he have like 3 world titles, like I don't think titles make a DJ or anything. Like there's world champions who aren't good, there's guys who don't have world titles who are really good, but like the ones that he won, like he really earned it, and he was against some really good DJs, and his routines are good. He scratches with his weak hand better than like I scratch with my strong hand. Like he's just like an all-around beast and stuff. And like he's one of the, like, if I had to go down the line of all the people I would like criticize for being like fake and not and miming and all this stuff, he'd be like the 5th last person on earth that I would actually like say that to, like there's like, he's, I don't know. It's just, yeah, he's not really the target for this kind of a thing,
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, it's a complicated issue because it goes into the whole like the hip hop aspect of it. It makes things like, there's two kind of elements going on. There's the turntablist aspect, and there's the hip hop aspect that people are both like having beef with, and the authenticity of it, like using kind of like mainstream kind of obvious hip hop songs in their tribute to hip hop, and that was like, for the real hip hop heads.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
So the next question I'll bring up, and this
one second, we have a craze comment again. It was, I think it was about with the work he had to put in and stuff, but he says, yeah, man, I hope somebody fucks me up. That would make me happy. So for any DJs watching, Craze calls you out to try to come and be better than him.
It's like the equivalent is basically just like last week, Michael Jordan told Klay Thompson to like, I want you to break the Bulls records. Like that's
it. Yeah, exactly.
Even if you're not competing, there's still that competitive drive that you want to see someone, top your greatness. Because if someone does do it, then it's like, okay, it improves me as a DJ or as a person, and then you just kind of move up even further from that. We're up to 90 viewers. Once again, hit us up on Twitter or Facebook if you have any questions or comments, and we'll try to answer them.
Yeah, I'm glad Craze said that too, because like for me, like I think there's a lot of people who see like battling as sort of like they just want to win, and they just want to like I don't know, hoard like accolades or something, and if they lose they get really upset about it and stuff, but they kind of lose sight of like the bigger picture, which is like the whole point of battling and competing and trying to like improve ourselves is for the actual art form, and trying to improve the art and do something better, and just like add something that new that you haven't seen other people do, that you think you can push and stuff. And like when I battle, like I'm not, you know, I'm more so than I want to win. I want like somebody who I think does a good routine to win, you know? Like if it's me, then like I want to try and be the person who comes with the best routine and the most innovative. But if somebody wins, like when you beat me in DMC online, like I was not unhappy about that. Like your routine was sick. The end of your routine like was so innovative with the reverse cue pointing and stuff. And it's like, you know, it like that's something that pushed the art form forward. And when Switch won too, you know, Switch like, and John First, you know, when I see guys who are pushing the art form forward, like it makes me happy even when I'm losing, you know, like because that's what it's about. It's not about just winning. If you win and you haven't done anything for the art, then you know that's not, it's not even cool. Like it's not, you don't even feel good about it. But if you, you know, if you lose, but you can, even if you're just somebody who was like, even if I never like made like a huge impact like innovating on the art form, but I posed enough of a threat to make someone else try hard enough to make an impact on the art form, then that's like a win, you know, that's a win for the art form. Just like, you know, maybe I'm just the gatekeeper or something, I'm not the actual guy to do it, but you know, so I like to, you know, that craze is kind of uh, like how he said it would make him happy if somebody came along and actually like was better than him and you know broke his records or whatever.
Yeah. To kind of reemphasize on what, yo, shout out to Redmatic who hit us up on Facebook. I think at the end of the day, I think it comes down to your routine is your contribution to the scene, and I think that your routine, uh, meaning whoever you are, myself, Beck, Fly, whoever, your routine makes you. You know, like for example, like when I think of someone, when I think of Netik, I think of the he had, I think it was a Miss J juggle. He has the I Want to Rock Right Now scratch routine. All of these routines come to my mind. You know.
Gangster breaks, and he had this one scratch routine. Okay, I personally, I I always hate when somebody just uses awe and fresh in a scratch routine, because I feel like they're just freestyling. It's not even a routine at all. But he had this one scratch routine where he just used the awe sample, but he made like a hook with it. Like he scratched like an awe melody over an electro beat, and it's such a dope routine. And all he did was use awe the whole thing, and I was like, wow, okay, like I guess you can make a dope like a dope routine with just using the awe sample. But yeah, Netik, lots of dope routines.
Yeah. Like so, like whatever we make, I feel like the routines outweigh the titles. You know, and I think that's what has that effect. That's the magic that, like, when we hear juggles from back in the day with songs that we're familiar with, like hearing the way it's manipulated, that's the same effect. Like that's, I feel, to me, that's uh, what would satisfy me. Like you were saying, like with whatever juggle or routine I might have done, that if it had an effect on you, that like, wow, that was really cool and that was dope, then mission accomplished. You know, and then same thing with you. Like I feel like you are always striving to do better each year as each year goes on, and you know you got rewarded, you know, from the hard work that you put in. You know, year after year after year. You know, like you were saying. I think that to me the catalog of routines that you have is such a dope body of work that you have, and you can kind of see the progression as time goes on. I feel like everyone else should kind of follow that same formula in a sense, you know, for the ones who want to, like, hard work is always going to get rewarded, whether you uh, the win or lose, you know. But
Yeah.
the problem with people trying to put in that hard work now is they're trying to be too technical as well, and they're also trying to please other DJs. If you're trying to please other DJs, no one's going to show up to the battle, period. You know,
Yeah.
and that's where the technicality is being lost in all this. And I can see where the Rob's point of view of focus. Let's get back to basics. Focus on basics, and then once you're kind of done with that, then it kind of you can kind of move forward onto other things. But if it's your focus is strictly on that and that way of executing, then it can become a bit cultish amongst the followers, you know, and that's
Yeah.
where this negativity that we've seen in this particular situation kind of comes out to play.
Yeah, I think like the foundation and the fundamentals of the art form, like the basic beat juggles and scratching and stuff, it's important to keep in mind that they, like, exactly what they are, that they are foundation, that they are fundamentals. They're not the end goal, but they're also not something you can skip over. You know, those are the two things about it. Like, you have to know your basics in order to do more complicated stuff. Like, say, like if there's any DJ out there who's like sees like A-Track and Craze and Netik and Fly, and they're like, okay, I want to be that guy, or I want to push it further than that guy. You should want to push it further, not just be that guy. But if you want to do that, you can't just learn, you can't just copy what they did and expect to be at that level. You have to learn everything that they learned before. So you don't study that person, you study who they studied, and you have to learn the progression. Like, you need to know the history to get up to that point. It's like you have to walk before you run, all that stuff. But yeah, I think there's some guys who get a little bit twisted. They see guys who lack fundamentals, and they get so focused on, like, everybody has to know their fundamentals and they have to know the old school stuff, and they lose sight of, like, that stuff is, it shouldn't be the end goal. Like, your end goal shouldn't just be to be like, okay, I'm gonna do 90s style halftime breakdown juggles and chases, and, like, never push it beyond that. You've got to, like, you need to know that stuff, because you can't do new stuff without knowing it, but you can't be stuck there either. Like, you know, you gotta figure out you gotta figure out what's the next step to push it beyond that. So yeah.
Agreed. Totally. Yeah, don't corner yourself into a box with any of this stuff, and also do your research. And at the same time, I think another example I want to bring up is Babyface Dwells, who both you and Dwells are benefits of white privilege within the DJs. No, I'm just kidding. No, with Dwells, obviously, like, one of the things I liked about Dwells, like going back like maybe a year or two ago, is I saw him post comments on old DMC videos online from, like, way back. We're talking like 89 or 90.
I have a funny story about this after you're done.
So, like, he would post these comments, and, like, he was obviously doing his research, you know. And there are other people that, you know, some students of mine that I tell them, you know, I want you to go back and watch all these, you know, see how everything evolved, you know. And not only that, but you have it all on YouTube, whatever, you know. But there's a reason, you know, so you know where everything came from, and also how can you contribute, you know, constructively without repetition, and also be potentially one of the innovators, you know. So that was one thing with Dwells that stuck out to me, that he obviously did his work. He came out, he did you know, his routines, which obviously were heavily influenced by back in the day, which, you know, if from a judging perspective, a couple years back, you know, if he did this, if a grown man did the same exact things that he was doing, then it would just be kind of like some chasing and strobing and some, you know, dope cutting here and there with a little bit of, like, noise, like wordplay. Obviously, he got the memo, he improved, he modernized his style, you know, but also I understand where he was coming from, that he was a young kid, he wanted to show everyone as well that I know my history, I did my research, I can do it, I have respect for everything, and then he reaped some
Yeah, like
benefits from it.
you like, and he did it the right way, and like he well heat for winning, but it's kind of like I felt kind of bad for him for like people like there's people like he got a lot of praise too, but he got a little bit of heat for winning. And like my thing was like he did it exactly how he should have. Like he did his set, his first winning New York set. It was like obviously like a kind of throwback set. But you need to make a throwback set before you can ever make a new set. It wasn't his fault that he won. It was like that's the best that he could make at the time, and then he happened to win. And then he got like more heat for winning than he would have for losing with the same set. But he definitely did it the right way with like the history and stuff. The funny story I was gonna say, so I was posting on Reddit on the Turntablist subreddit, and there's this guy on there called Jiru the Clamaja, and he's posting all these like throwback like 90s battle routines, like ITF ones and like more obscure routines and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, I've always been like a huge battle history nerd, and I like was posting stuff up there too, and I noticed like he's always posting like all these like ITF routines and stuff that were like some of my favorites, and I'm like, oh man, this guy has really good taste in battle routines. And then we were like talking like on private message and stuff about like routines and that, and then like I invited him to come on like the Turntablist World like chat room for scratching on, and he came on there, and then like found out he was like 13 years old, and here I thought he was like a 40-year-old man. Like I'm like like I'm like it's rare that you find a guy who's like even in their 20s who is like doing their like hardcore history about battle DJing and stuff, and who knows like certain like old routines and stuff that aren't just like the obvious like 6-minute DMC winning ones. And but yeah, so he's like 13 years old and like studying like what is it, like DJ static routine, ITF routines and stuff like that. But yeah, so yeah, got sidetracked there. But 12s, yeah, dope.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So we're up to 91 viewers. Hit us up. We're gonna try and take a couple more questions before we roll out. Hit us up on Twitter or Facebook. Do you have anything on your end?
Yeah, hit me up on PayPal. $10.
Nice.
No, if anybody who's like commenting on my Facebook right now, it's like I can't open Facebook because my internet's so bad because Canada is a third world country. So message me on Twitter if there's anything like important to talk about or anything.
Yeah. Someone's mentioned if we're going to do this again. I'm not sure, but we shall see. I kind of want to try and get as many points off as possible, so that way people can kind of take it and just learn from this whole situation that was that could have been avoided. But also, I want to mention that the business aspect of it again.
Okay.
When we put, okay, so here's the truth of the matter, right? There was only maybe 3 people, maybe even 5 at the most, but I would say there's only 3 people in the world right now that can probably do these routines live for a living, and that's that, like I'm sorry, it'll probably be like maybe between 5 and 10. Okay.
Like
some of those people, that basically their full-time job is like, I'm going to rock these routines with a little bit of party rocking. So it's like Craze, A-Track,
50.
You got Birdie Nam Nam, C2C, where it's when you go see them live, you expect some proper turntablist shit. Now, Qbert, obviously, of course, but at the same time, there is that blend of party rocking because we are in a state of everyone wants to dance
Hmm.
and have a good time, and so when we do routines, it can sometimes go over people's heads. In saying that, Facebook and YouTube has kind of been the avenue for us to get undivided attention, to focus on the routines, and there's pros and cons with that. So uh, the pro is, you get good followings, you get more likes, you build your brand. And the con is, sometimes you might not be able to perform that live, but sometimes if you do, you're only satisfying maybe a small percentage of people that actually understand it, that actually are coming out to see what it is that you're doing, and so there's always that fine line of, okay, so what do I do? Like for example, the uh, Craze obviously does the new Slave routine live. Um, uh, C2C I think is an even better example. Like some of their songs that was like in the first Ride Along movie that was playing, they still perform live. But there's only a small amount of scratching, in it. But
Yeah.
I feel the people that go see C2C are almost going for them as musical artists first and maybe DJs second, so it doesn't really.
Yeah, nowadays, sure.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal, but yeah, well, I just wanted to bring that up to, like, for example, when I put up a routine like on Facebook or whatever, yeah, I do it because I love making these routines. I love putting them out. But at the same time, I'm also very strategic as to where I put it and how I put it, and most people won't tell you that, because that's leaking into, business talk, but that's the truth of the matter, and I feel like that should be acknowledged in this particular case with Netik and Fly, because they knew they had a product, and not only that, but it was fun, it was entertaining, it was musical,
Yeah.
and it sounded dope. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel that they should be rewarded for that. Now, the purists will come and say, well, you know what, it's disrespectful. It's not what hip hop should be with DJing in particular. So how do we fix that? So how do we avoid a situation like this ever happening again? And how do we bridge that gap between the two generations? Does it mean everyone should basically now just stop what they're doing, go practice, and start putting stuff out, so that way it's open for constructive criticism from other folks, so that way we're all in this together and build everyone up to the awkward, or that pathway and just kind of let everything go the way it is.
So okay, so your question is basically what's the solution to this kind of the like so okay, for me like I don't know, I think the solution for me it's always been like lead by example, and like try and if you think that something is not very, if there's something you don't like about the scene, try and do what you do like about it, try and show how it should be done and push it, and just like get behind that, and then rather than tear down what other people are doing necessarily, it's I think like it's also important to discuss things and to highlight it and stuff, but I don't think there's any better way than to just like lead by example, like if like, and that's kind of what I try and do with my battle routines. Like it's no, like I've been pretty vocal about not being down with like heavily produced edited routines, and so I made it a point to really try and like do my routines in a more traditional way, especially before this year leading up, like everything. And like even now, like a lot of the routines I make are with like the original tracks, like the original MP3s, and I only edit them in order to make my routine performable without like touching my laptop and loading tracks and things. But I don't really like do it in order to change how I would perform the actual routine. But like
it's fun. I don't mean to cut you off. It's funny you mention that because I'll share some insight real quick, like off the top. Like, so with my DMC set from 2014, the one that won online, I try to, with my transitions in particular, I try to make them as organic as possible without having a boom or explosion in between to kind of not have like an easy segue, you know, like. And so, for example, like, so when I got to Worlds that year, like, there were certain judges in particular, one of which, well, I'll share two experiences. One was with Fong Fong. Fong Fong was like, I didn't think your transitions were that good, you know, he told me. And so I'm thinking back to his DMC set. I'm like, okay, this is the same dude that had really easy transitions from routine to routine. So that's his definition of a good transition, you know. He kind of disregarded everything that happened in the past, you know, or the generation that, you know, I kind of came from or studied, follow. And then there was another judge who I think it was Nelson, who was like, "Oh, I didn't realize until after, like the sound on my routine wasn't that good, so you know I didn't vote for you." But then when my friend watched it afterwards, he was like, "Did you see what I-Dee did?" And then it was like, "Oh, it was too late," you know. And I was like, "Okay." So to me, it was I have no problem putting these folks out on blast on Front Street because I think it's beneficial for the whole scene that to kind of understand what kind of goes on behind the scenes with this, you know. But there's a very there can be detachments. It's like I can agree to disagree, you know. But sometimes stuff like that, like comments like that, I feel it's almost beneficial to know the history, you know, in that particular regard, you know.
Yeah, I have a comment. So I'm glad that you brought up the point of trying to like transition organically, like trying to actually put transitions between your songs, like mix them, right? Like you're trying to mix the two tracks or blend them or find a way to get to the next part of your routine using the two songs, like what's there, instead of like going into Ableton and putting an explosion or just going into and like mixing the actual MP3s, like blending them, beat matching them, and then just having it the transition play kind of thing. And yeah, okay, like I've noticed that started happening. I feel like, you know, I love this is one of my favorite battle DJs, but I-Emerge was the first guy I saw to have beats transitioning into another beat without him even changing records. The song would change. And I always felt like if you want to do that, that's fine. But in a DJ battle, in a competition where you're being judged on your actual DJing, it doesn't matter. Like, if some people are like, as long as it sounds good, like it's good. But in a DJ battle, I think it has to sound good because you made it sound good. Like if your transitions are just happening and you're not actually mixing, then you shouldn't get any points on it. But if you actually mix the tracks, then you should get points on it because it's about your actual DJing. It's what you're actually doing, not the end result, and what it sounds like isn't actually all that matters, because then we would just like record our songs like ahead of time and play them and not do anything if sound was all that mattered, right? But it matters what you're actually doing live. And yeah, like how you're saying, like Fong Fong, I like his DMC online set, but the reasons that I like that set are like, I really like his scratching, like his style of scratching, really clean, technical, has a lot of like musical instrument cuts. Those are the things I like about it. But and I think it's a fine set, but it's not a perfect set either, you know. And one of the things that I don't like about that set is that the transitions aren't really, you know, they're not really ones that he did. The routine just kind of transitions itself, you know. And so yeah, it's kind of, you know,
it's very safe in that particular
yeah.
aspect.
And I think it's like it's a little bit of a conflicting philosophy in battling, where there's definitely some guys who are more like, well, as long as it sounds good, like it's fine. And I think that's where a lot of the pre-production and editing comes in for people, because they're like, I just want the final product to sound as clean and as good as it can. So they do a lot of edits and transitions and stuff ahead of time, and then so they don't do as much live. But for me, that's a negative thing for me in a competition context. If you're DJing like at a club, like who cares? Just do whatever you need, you know. But you're not being judged for it. But in a battle, in a competition, you need to it needs to be stuff that you're actually doing in order to have any like to have any merit in an actual battle. And it's like, if you're not doing it, then I think it actually takes away from it.
So revitalizing the scene entirely as a whole, what is one thing, what if you could only pick one thing that could reinvigorate the whole scene and kind of get it back, what would you want people to focus on? For me in particular, I think it's musicality. You know, I think if everyone just focuses on being musical, you will be rewarded whether you win or lose. You know, if you lose, it's a result of you maybe not doing something that's unique or abstract within you. Musicality, but you will, once you've mastered musicality, you kind of understand that, okay, maybe I can push the bar a little bit in a different way, but still maintain the musicality, because I think the musicality for me is it's what's killing the scene, and it's what's on a worldwide level. Having everything that I've noticed within the UK, within Australia, within the US, attendance is the biggest problem for me. You know, like you have like, if we have musicality, then it makes people, it's worth it for people to spend their money to be entertained by a DJ battle. You know, and so if people are just making stuff to please other DJs, then keep it at home, or you know, don't expect to, you know,
Put it on YouTube if you want, but
on YouTube, you know. But anyways, what are your thoughts on that?
Musicality, yeah, I think, okay, I also think just pushing musicality more is good, but I'm going to be a little bit more specific in musicality, because I think some people think like musicality or like track selection or things like that is just in like what music you choose and like how it sounds, you know. But that's kind of like subjective. You know, different people like different music, but for me, musicality is not in just the songs you play, but it's in what you're doing, and it's in, are your techniques musical? Like if you're technical, but is it done in a musical way? Like is it rhythmic? Is what you're doing in key? Like when you're
Are you
actually
listening to yourself? Like, I think that's one of the huge problems that DJs have. Like, they're not listening to themselves. They don't videotape themselves. They don't record themselves, and so like they don't look at it from, you know, a third person's point of view. That like, okay, does that actually sound dope? Or like, if they're unsure of, give it to someone who is music inclined but doesn't know anything about turntablism. Is that worthy of their attention? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, is it like musicality for me is like, is it musically sound? Like, is everything, does it make sense? Like does it flow properly? Does it, you know, do things sound right? Or like, you know, um there's so many aspects to musicality. But for me, like a thing that I don't talk about, like I haven't talked about a lot, because you know, when you're battling, you keep a lot of like your secrets to yourself, because you don't want to just like give edges. But like my biggest thing that I've incorporated in recent years is like actual like music theory, in the sense, like, you know, like I make sure that my samples are in the right key, and that I'm doing stuff that doesn't clash, and then trying to that when I'm structuring my actual routines, like it's not like back when I started, I'd have more like I'd have like a 32 bar solo or something, but now I have like in the first routine in my DMC online, I have like a chorus, and then I go into solo, and then I go into a bridge, and then I go into another like melodic solo. But everything is actually like it's made in like like more song like, you know. It's not just random order. It's not just like I'm not just soloing the whole time. Whereas like, yeah, I think when for me, when I hear people say like, oh, it's too technical, it's not that the actual routine is too difficult or something. Like for me, like the most technical DJ out there is DJ Craze, and nobody would ever say he's too technical, but it's because it's like it's not, when other people say too technical, it's like it's not structured right musically. It's like it's just a solo the entire time, so it's like all it's about is just like, you know, you have 6 minutes of a guy going off on a big scratch solo or like a beat juggle solo or something, and it's not actually like put together properly. Whereas like, you know, when I listen to Craze, even though he's so technical and it's just so difficult and so advanced, everything still makes sense, and the way he puts it together, it flows like it's a song and like actual like music. So
Totally.
that's musicality for me in the turntablist DJ aspect.
To emphasize a little bit more on this key selection, the same thing applies with DJing. You know, when you choose your songs that you're playing out and you're just mixing, you know, you choose songs. If you're party rocking, for example, you play songs that are generally in a good key that isn't depressing, and it sonically sounds good and it makes you happy. And the same thing I feel needs to be applied to when you're creating routines and composing turntablist type stuff, that you're choosing a song that's not only they're sonically in sync, but in their key wise, but they're also good sounding keys, you know, where it doesn't necessarily be as depressing of a sound, you know, because that could be the one downfall, that you did everything so well, but then you know, it might not necessarily be in the right key. Like one thing in particular that some people came up to me that was like, you know, some of the stuff I might do might be a little bit too dark versus stuff I've done in the past where it's a little bit more lighter, you know, in a sense.
I mean, I don't know. For me, like I don't like to dictate like the style people go for. So I wouldn't say that necessarily. Maybe it'd be true, but you know,
not necessarily like actually purposely doing it. It's more of kind of like a gut thing, you know, like making sure that like the finished product, it sounds overall good, if that makes sense, you know, and it makes me feel a particular way, you know.
I was just thinking like think of like the contrast in style and in sound and everything between like Kentaro and I Emerge. You know, you have like a really lighthearted, like upbeat style that's really, you know, just like, I don't know, makes you like want to bounce. And then you have really aggressive, like I Emerge's routines are like dark and aggressive, and they're, you know, so I don't know. I think as long as you do it well, like you can do whatever style, but the more important part is just doing it like well and to the best of your ability, and really like pushing that to like its fullest, I guess. We have a few questions on Twitter, actually a bunch of them, if you want.
A whole bunch, yeah.
So oh man, so we have two questions that are talking about custom vinyl, like record vinyl versus Ableton, and like produce routines. I don't know, like I guess there's a lot that we can talk about for that, but for me, like it's the same. There's no, like if you're editing, if you're doing like really heavily edited beat juggles and routines on Ableton or on real vinyl that is custom pressed, it's the exact same. Like it doesn't make it any more like it doesn't make anything like more or less authentic if you're using analog or digital. To me, like it's more like how you're actually putting the routine together and stuff. I don't know if that's
Yeah. I think it's gut feeling at the end of the day and making sure that I think the scene is lacking in terms of large amounts compared to how it was back in the day with Magic, you know, and you want people to feel a certain way about those routines, you know. Uh, Speaking on the subject, you know, with the Fly and Netik routine, like again, for the people who just joined, whatever, this I only watched it once, you know, but the things that I remember from it is like that first sample, the hip hop music, you know, it's like it's that same feeling that when you're party rocking, you have an acapella and then you throw a beat on top of it. It's like it's getting me hyped. It makes me happy, you know, and then the beat comes in. You know, it's like little simple things, but it's still, you know, musically entertaining. So
yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Someone asked our top 5 routines of all time. I always hate that question, like, because I always have to like separate it into all these like my top 5 DMC routines, my top 5 like routines of like 1991 to 1995, and my top 5 beat juggles and top. You know, it's hard for me to compare all of my top 5s. It's like I don't want to compare like Tiger style scratch routines to Precision's beat juggles and like say which I like better. You know.
totally. I concur with you on that, but I will say, geometrics. If you're watching this, bring back that snaggletooth routine. It hasn't been on the net. It's one of the dopest, not seen beat juggles ever from like the early 2000s. But snaggletooth. It was with I think Slice's record, the snaggletooth breaks. Anyways, let's see what else. Image from the wood. There's no room for negativity. This shit is too small to hate on shit you might not understand. It's a lot of shit in your comment, Image. But no, totally agree though. Yeah, like we all need to go about it constructively. We all need to help other people, and especially if there's a language barrier in particular that I feel like with this particular case and situation with Fly and Netik versus, you know, being French and then Rob being American. There's no need to throw in low blows about, you know, culture or anything like that.
You know? That's completely unnecessary. You know, like that's definitely getting like far away from the actual the point and the art and the music. You know, that's like yeah, that's sort of that's definitely what, like, you know, because even though I kind of I can agree with some of the sentiments that Rob said. I just didn't like the way that he went about it, just so negative and getting touching on like things that were not didn't have to do with the actual like issue. You know, the issue is basically like that it's important to, you know, try and preserve like the fundamentals and not to, you know, I think his main concern is like people taking shortcuts and not learning the fundamentals. And, you know, I think Fly and Netik did do that, and maybe like he pulled the trigger a little fast on those guys. But I think, you know, that's what his actual point is, that people should make sure they, you know, they're not just skipping out on learning to beat juggle and letting Serato do all the work and just cue pointing it and like letting tracks loop by themselves and stuff. Like, it's important to, if you're trying to actually contribute to the art and be like the best DJ you can be, it's important to know that stuff.
At Schmood says enough routines lately don't hold up when you close your eyes. Routines have to work sans video, which is a very good point. I'll tell you off the bat, about maybe 15, 16 years ago, during the Napster days, I was downloading a whole bunch of DMC routines, and I was just as, you know, thoroughly entertained by just hearing the audio alone.
Yeah.
And that's what we mean, I think, by DJs have to kind of listen to themselves, you know, like to make sure that it sounds good, you know, like just without video itself.
Yeah, I think there's, you know, I think yeah, it definitely has to work. And
I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm sorry to cut you off. This, before I forget, this kind of sums up what you were saying about beat juggling and the
yes,
European style versus the American style is how do we appreciate a juggle from the European point of view when you're listening to it just audio wise, but you're unfamiliar with the song that's being played because it is a custom produced.
oh
So therefore, it kind of only works in a video setting somewhat. You know, it's like if it's audio alone, you don't have that same feel. Whereas if it's audio alone with a song that you're familiar with, you know, it's
yeah.
a little bit better. I don't know.
Well, yeah, for me, that's one of the major changes I think in like modern battling with Serato and editing songs is that I think that like Schmood's what he said like is important that you have to have it has to sound good still and has to be like rhythmically good and on beat and everything when you don't have any video. But I think that that nowadays, like one of the biggest changes, you can't judge something from like an actual battle perspective from just audio anymore because it's really because people do so much work ahead of time that it's hard to tell how much is stuff they're actually doing and how much is stuff that is that the song is doing itself.
Mm.
Like it goes back to like the transitions, like where with you doing your transitions live and Fong Fong having transitions that are made already. Like it's hard to you can't judge. You wouldn't know that just from the audio. So you have to like it's important that it holds up with audio, but you definitely can't just judge from audio. So you can't just be like, oh, the song, the routine that sounds better is the better routine or the better DJing. You have to actually see it and make sure that they are DJing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm gonna have a little fun real quick. DJ Mixed Mellow Curtis Greaves, come on, son. You should know better than to be using this outlet to be talking to girls like that. Come on now, you know better than that.
Oh,
Shout out to Charity and Mia, and I think Marilyn's watching as well. Shout out to all the ladies. Seriously,
yes.
Christy, who
All the
continues to
ladies in the
hold
scratch,
all of us.
all the ladies in the scratch thing, all three of them. Shout out to you.
Yeah.
And
Um,
uh,
let's see. Any last questions? You guys have 1 minute to type them in.
we got do you feel some of the winning routines of the last 5 to 10 years have lost the funk of the 90s and early 2000s?
I think the question is or the trick is how do I maintain and create funk without having to recycle particular patterns that are rooted in funk and head nodding and breaking stuff, you know? So there's still a lot of patterns that like one thing in particular that I like, and I'll use as a good example as, it's he took if you really break down the root of it. So shout out to Shortcut. His Mantronics juggle from '98. There's certain like when I would watch it over and over and over, and I dissect it and analyze it. He does a really crazy crossfader thing in between the patterns. That's like still funky, still yeah, like with the crab. But if you break it down, there's still you see traces of earlier patterns, but he just kind of took that to a next level, and so that same formula kind of somewhat applies nowadays. Like you can do something cool. It might be something simple, but if you just add a little bit of spice and still maintain your fun, then it could, it'll still be dope. But you really have to dissect everything holistically, somewhat. And part of that is just doing your research and all that. But anyways, to answer the question, obviously it hasn't been as funky as before, to the point where you're going to get that like really head noddy stuff where it's like, It's like what people are craving is like when you watch a slam dunk competition, when someone does a nasty dunk, you see all the dudes like on the sidelines, like they're like, oh shit, and they grab each other, like you don't see that as much now. Like when you see a really dope routine, like one thing that stuck out to me back in the day was like seeing Esquire like in front of all like the front of the crowd in some of those DMC videos because he would like be like the one person like totally bopping his head and all that, So my advice is basically figure out ways to kind of still maintain funk without with also knowing your history and trying to evolve, because that's what we're all trying to do.
Yeah. So yeah. So yeah. My take on it. Have lost the funk. I think like okay, like um I do think in the last 10 years, especially just before Serato was allowed in battles, there's like a little bit of a dark era where it's like battling was a little bit weak. So yeah, maybe the I think the quality of some of the sets at like on the world level was a little bit lower in that time. When Serato came back, I think it kind of like brought things back a little bit. And I think yeah, like there's the I don't think that the funk is gone or anything, but maybe you have to look for a little bit, and it doesn't exist in the same way like before. Like it is really popular to use funky songs like just hip hop and breaks and everything, and people, even if somebody's like actual juggling and actual scratching wasn't very funky, they would do it over like a funk song, and so it would still like at least the music they're choosing was funky. But now like a lot of people aren't choosing like funky music to base their stuff off of. Um, so uh, so it's not as obvious and it's not as out there. So um, I don't know. I don't think it's lost the funk, but you have to look for the dudes. Like I would say, don't just like watch only the winning sets and judge the whole scene off of it and stuff, because there's some funky guys out there like DJ Spell and John First, and like there's just at the World Finals this year, like Precision and Spell like got second and third, and both of them like really funky. Um, so it's out there. Has it lost it a bit? Maybe a little bit, but it's still there. And I think the important part isn't whether battling has lost the funk. It's like how we're just gonna keep like making it better and make more funky stuff. It's like instead of worrying about the people out there battling not being funky, um, it's a lot better to just like go to your room and make something funky and put it out there and be like, yo, check this out, this is funky. And then if people like it, they'll do more funky stuff, and funkiness will breed more funkiness.
Amen. Um, Yo, straight up, we want to thank everyone who tuned in. We just did this on the fly, no pun intended. Um,
Why?
uh, shout out to Styles Davis, DJ City in the house. Shout out to Repmatic. Shout out to Shortcut. Shout out to Craze.
Yeah.
Everyone who tuned in. We're gonna try and maybe do this another time, but in the essence of this whole conversation, we're not going to do this anytime soon because y'all motherfuckers need to be practicing right now. So
Yeah.
we will come and check up on the scene when necessary and when needed.
Only when there's major beef happening, we'll do this. So I encourage you guys to go out there and start mad beef with really important people in the scene, pioneers. Just call them out and talk shit to them, and then we'll do this again.
Yeah, especially Vect. He will battle anyone.
Luckily for me, I didn't pioneer anything, so you can't call me out for anything. I pioneered the hack game.
Shouts to Vect, seriously, reigning world champ. Real quick before you go, are you officially retired? Are you defending? What's the deal?
Man, I hope I'm retired. Like, I don't want to battle. I battled so much, and it takes so much energy to battle, and like You know, I battled more than anybody in the last 4 years. Like I put so much into it, and like I just I want to like honestly, I want to like start focus on like teaching and doing like tutorials and lessons and stuff, and kind of I want to help the next person battle. But you know, there's still part of me that like not going to IDA in December was like the hardest thing ever. I like had to like sit on my hands and like force myself to not like I worked on routines. I have routines that I didn't like that I haven't put out that were made for the battle, but I told myself like, you know, I got to move on and like try and do other stuff. But, you know, if I happen to wake up in 6 months and have 6 minutes of material I like, I'm not going to not enter, but I don't want
Amen. Amen. Peace and love to everyone.
it.
We are, both Jake and I are first and foremost fans of the game. We
Yeah.
love the game before we even touch the turntables, and we want to continue to see everyone be fans of the game, no matter what avenue or background you come from. You know, all we ask for in particular is just know your history. You know, and then add on to the what we did with the contribution of our routines, you know, for the scene and all that. You know, titles aside, at the end of the day, it comes down to the routine. So just um, add your contribution on, put it up, put it out in the open. Do not surround yourself with yes men. If you put something up, ask, you know what, but put a disclaimer. I don't want any yes men's. What is an unbiased, you know, opinion of this body of work that I'm putting out, you know, and that's what the DMCs is about, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's and yeah, definitely I agree. Like you gotta know your history, and I think like look at your DJ idols and the guys who aren't battling anymore, and be like, yo, like I really love like DJ Craze and DJ A-Track's routines. What would they be doing if they're still battling? And you know, try and do that. Try and figure out like learn everything they did, learn what their routines, and then see where you think they would have done next, and that's how you push the art form like that.
Also, too, a life question or life reference rather. Two things I want to put out. If you have all the time in the world, practice, you know, and then you know you'll be great. If you don't have enough time in the world, you run, you know, have a 9 to 5 or whatever. Do an hour a day or something, you know, or 30 minutes. You know, write drills, do something. You know, figure out a way to make it work within your daily life
Yeah,
schedule as well.
focused practice is really important. I always write down like the exact things I want to practice so that like I can like, and I put it on a list like right by my setup so that I can look at it and be like, oh, this is what I should be practicing. Because you know, if you just wing it every day, it's like it's not as easy to make progress as if you're like, okay, I need to learn chasing, and then you look at it every day and you practice chasing every day until you know it, and then you write down your next thing, you know. Focused practice.
Amen.
Yeah.
Any last shout outs?
Man, um, shout out to the DJ gods, and I don't know, man. I'm just gonna go scratch now. I'm not good at talking.
Amen. Yeah, you're not good at scratching. Amen. What are you talking about, man? What are you talking about? No, thank you again, Vex. Like I said before, we just improv this, um, and yeah, hopefully you guys can carry the torch for us and the rest of the scene and put in work.
Yeah, and respect to Netik, Fly, and Rob Swift. They're all OGs. You know, they all deserve respect.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, it goes back to their body of work. They put out really dope stuff, and no one can take that away from any of them. You know, and yeah, peace and love.
Yeah. Word up. Okay, cool.
Bye, everyone.
Peace.